Hey friends, Sheila here. Today we are talking about how to bike tour on a single speed, but for this one, I have brought in somebody who knows a lot more about single speed riding than I do. Been riding a single speed for the better part of this year, so like 8 months?
About 8 months, yeah.
And Michael actually rode on his single speed for our recent bike tour from Toronto to Montreal, which if you haven't watched yet, I will link above and below. There's a part 1 and a part 2. That trip we did about 660K in 7 days, just to give you an idea. So today, he's gonna share his insights for how that went. Yeah. All right, so questions for Michael. That was a drum roll.
Shoot.
Okay, first question. Why did you decide to bike tour on a single speed?
The simple answer to that is it's the bike that I had. I actually got a single speed before I even thought about touring. Riding it through the spring and summer, I wanted to do a tour, and it's the only bike I had, so I decided, let's see if this is possible. I did some research to see if anyone was doing bike tours on a single speed. Sure enough, there's enough people, a lot of people saying it's crazy, but I liked the idea of a little bit of an extra challenge. I liked the simplicity. I made sure the route we picked wasn't too hilly and mostly flat, and yeah.
And how much riding had you done on your single speed before we left?
So up until March of this year, I had never ridden a single speed. So I was riding it in the spring and the summer up until September when we left. When I found out I was going to go on the tour, I started doing some 40, 50, 60 kilometer rides to just get the sense of how it feels to ride for a long time. I did up to 100 kilometers just to make sure I could, because that's about like the longer days we would have on the road. I would say just, a few months of longer rides, but that's about it.
So your single speed is a Fuji Feather.
Yes.
So how did you decide on that bike, and did you make any changes to it for touring?
When I decided I wanted to get a single speed, I did some research, and I found that the Fuji Feather is a well-known, well-reviewed, reliable, entry-level single speed bike. So I went with that and ended up having to make some changes, not specifically for touring, but just as I started to ride it for a few months, I decided to make some changes. So I added hoods to the handlebars to add a more comfortable riding position for me and just more positions in general. I put gravel tires on there. It couldn't handle very thick gravel tires, so they're pretty thin, but made a big difference for the tour. I changed the saddle to something that was more comfortable for me with a cutout. And the last change I made was I changed out the pedals that came with the little clips, a little cage for your toe. I changed that out for flat pedals, which was a huge game changer for me as well.
And so for touring, what bags did you choose that went well with your single speed? Did you like them? Tell us more about your baggage setup.
Right, so it's worth mentioning that the Fuji Feather has no mounting points for anything. For racks or bags or even water bottle mounts. There's also minimal clearance from the tires for bags to sit, so my options were pretty limited, I will say that. But I did some research and I found some bags that fit. First of all, I knew I wanted a frame bag, and I knew I wanted it to be waterproof. So I looked up the biggest frame bag that would fit in my frame, and I ended up with the Apidura full-size frame bag. I really loved that bag. I ended up using it way more than I thought I would. It was comfortable to pull stuff in and out of while I was riding, and I could just keep stuffing it, and it would get quite full and never get in the way. I don't just want things to be functional, I also want them to be fun to use and it'd be a pleasure to use, and the frame bag really was. For my handlebar bag, I used the Swift Industries Catalyst bag. There was also minimal space between my handlebars, so I wanted to find something that was more compact. The bag fit really well. It's a good bag, it was waterproof, cinched up nice and tight so it didn't flop around a whole lot. But it's a little bit cumbersome to use. Getting in and out of it takes, a minute or two. I think I'm gonna maybe try to find something else. For the saddlebag, I was just looking for the biggest bag I could fit on there since I didn't have a lot of other space for big items. So I went with the Apidura saddlebag. I think it's their 17 liter. It was a great bag. I really loved it. I could just stuff it really full, and even when it was fully packed out, it didn't flop around too much. It was really secure. The one thing I'll say is I found I had to pack it very strategically to keep the shape of it from drooping down. Once you have it packed, the way you want it, it really is a good bag. I also kind of chickened out at the last minute and decided I might not have enough space for everything and the additional food we might get on the way. So I was like, I'm just gonna bring my backpack just in case I need it. It ended up being good for me. I was happy to have the extra space, and I packed it only with the super light items so that it wasn't heavy. But I definitely don't recommend bringing a backpack, and I'm always going to try not to in the future. Any little extra weight on your back is gonna wear on you over time.
Something that I just thought of that's worth noting is that because we're touring together, I was carrying the tent and most of the food because my setup was easy to toss it all on there. So out of curiosity, for somebody that's thinking about bike touring on their own, what do you think you might do next time if you were on your own and you needed to do the tent and the food yourself?
That's one thing I felt a little bit bad about on the tour, is making you carry the tent because I didn't have space for it anywhere on my bike. If I was going to bike tour by myself, I would probably buy the lightest, smallest single person tent I could find, and it should fit in the saddlebag. With the bike I have, there might be single speeds out there that have more options for bigger bags, maybe on the handlebars or maybe a fork bag. If you can fit a rack and panniers, even better. But on my bike, the Fuji Feather, I don't think I could fit a very big tent. So if I was touring by myself, I might end up staying in hotels or something.
Yeah, fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is the cool thing, right? There's always a way. There's always creative solutions. So if you know any of the creative solutions, if you have toured on a single speed, definitely toss your experiences
Please.
in the comments. Yeah. So how did you find bike touring on a single speed overall?
Well, I'll start with the good stuff first. So given that our route was relatively flat, I really liked just not having to think about gears. I love just being able to get on the bike and ride. I will say there was a couple hills that I had to push my bike up, but I could count those on one hand for the entire week that we were biking. And then for the not so great stuff, I do think the gear ratio on my bike was a little bit high for the trip. So some of the hills, like I said, were pretty tough. And being that I was biking with you, if you wanted to go at a more chill pace sometimes, it was really hard for me to match that pace. It's surprisingly difficult to ride your bike trying to pedal really slowly or doing a lot of coasting.
Yeah.
There's a certain cadence that's more comfortable for you, and I couldn't go at that cadence a lot of the time if we were taking our time some of the days. So if I was bike touring with someone else, I would probably get a lower gear ratio on my bike.
Yeah, and it's cool to know that that's an option to change that to make it work better for you over the long run.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess lastly, in terms of the overall experience, it was my first bike touring experience. So I, take what I say with a grain of salt because I don't have anything to compare it to. But this was the bike that allowed me to get out and go on a tour. So ultimately, it was a great bike for the experience, and it did everything I needed it to do.
Yeah.
And now I'm hooked on bike touring.
Okay, last question. Is there anything else that you would want to share for other people that are thinking about bike touring on a single speed?
Yeah, sure. So I will say, I'm not that experienced with bike touring or single speeds. So my advice isn't a prescription for anyone, but
Yeah.
in my opinion, there were plenty of people in my research that were saying not to tour on a single speed. It's not a good idea, it's bad for your knees, it's gonna be too hard, you're gonna be walking your bike a lot. Ultimately, when you're bike touring, I don't think you're gonna be spending a lot of your time thinking, oh, I wish I had gears. You're gonna bike when you can bike, and you might need to walk your bike sometimes up hills if you have a high gear ratio, but that's all part of the adventure, and as long as you don't pick a super hilly route, then there's really no reason why you can't bike tour on a single speed. But yeah, all that being said, I think on the second day, after our most hilly day of the tour, I did have some weird knee pain pop up. So I had to adjust for that, try to adjust my position, my pedaling. Definitely listen to your body. You can hurt yourself, just like, with any kind of biking. Don't always try to push through the pain.
Yeah.
And you don't have to prove anything to anyone. By biking on a single speed.
Yeah.
So listen to your body and take breaks and modify your tour if you need to.
So obviously, you have to listen to your body, go at your own comfort and experience level, but you had a really great experience with it.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks for being here. I hope you learned a little bit more about bike touring on a single speed. I know I have learned a lot from you and from all the research you've done and getting to watch you actually do it, which is super cool. If you like this video, please hit the little like button. Subscribe to the channel if you want more about bike touring, and tell your friends and chat in the comments.
Please like, comment, subscribe if you haven't already, and thanks for watching. Don't put that in, please.
That's going in.
No.
He was born to be a YouTuber.
No. Peace.
Okay, got nothing else to add.
Nope, we're done.